I want to talk about something today. I'm going to do something that I almost never do, which is make a long-term prediction. And one of the reasons is because if it's too long-term, I probably won't be around to see if I'm right or not. But still, here is something that I think is going to happen that nobody sees coming. And so I want to put it down here so you can remember and say, oh yeah, that guy, the late Andrew Klavan, he really knew what was going on. My prediction is that within 10 years, let's say, obesity is going to vastly increase, especially among middle class and lower people. And no one will be able to understand it because we have drugs that prevent it. That's my prediction. My prediction is everybody will say, why, now that we have drugs that prevent obesity, why are so many people, even more people, obese than there were in 2023? And here's why. I want to read you, here's why I make that prediction. I want to read you something about this new drug, Ozempic, which is said to basically make obese people thin. It basically stops your problem with obesity. There was an article, I think this week, in the Wall Street Journal. An amazing, amazing article. But the minute I saw it, I thought, uh-oh, this is bad. Ozempic settles the obesity debate. It's biology over willpower. Weight loss drugs affect the brain in ways that help researchers understand how the body regulates weight. And that's the headline. Ozempic and similar drugs are transforming the world's understanding of obesity. It isn't so much about willpower, it's about biology. The success of the powerful new class of diabetes and weight loss drugs show how important chemistry is to determining a person's weight. The brain is the body's chief chemist, regulating appetite and making it difficult for many people to shed pounds and keep them off. The brain determines how much fat it wants people to carry, according to years of research bolstered by the new drug. And then it explains how this happens. So I'm not a doctor. You obviously know this. I don't want anybody to stop taking drugs that their doctor recommends or to, go off a drug that is working for them. But I just want to point out that article is almost certainly untrue. It is a trope, a fixed idea in the minds of materialists that the body is in charge of your emotions, is in charge of your actions, is in charge of your decisions, and not you, not some you that the body simply represents. The brain decides how much food you want, not you decide, this thing in your head. And so if I tinker with that thing in your head, it will decide not to eat so much. Now, this is the same thing they said about depression, I don't know, let's say 20 years ago, when they started coming out with new brands of antidepressants. You are not depressed because you are depressed. You are depressed because you have a chemical imbalance in your head. And I remember saying to a psychiatrist, that is going to cause more people to get depressed. And he said, you're just ignorant. You're just ignorant because you haven't seen what I've seen, the people who are being helped by these antidepressive drugs. And it is true, or at least I'm told that it is true, that individuals are being helped, who are depressed, are being helped by antidepressants. But here is the weirdest thing. When you invent a vaccine, for instance, chickenpox, measles, those diseases virtually are gone now because the vaccines have worked. The drugs that they have given people work. They have stopped those things. Polio, the polio vaccine. People do not get polio anymore if they take that drug. And I know a lot of people are now paranoid about vaccines. That's nonsense. Vaccines are a great invention. That doesn't mean all of them are great, but it does mean that the ones that work are great, and they have gotten rid of polio. People don't have polio if they take the vaccine. However, they have come up with a cure, so they told us, for depression, and yet depression is on the rise. There are now, suicides, about 49,500 people took their own lives last year in the U.S., the highest number ever. More people, I think depression is up by 3 times. 1 in 10 Americans are being medicated for depression, and yet it has not made a dent, according to Bessel van der Kolk in his book, The Body Keeps the Score. It has not made a dent in hospital admissions for depression. The number of people treated for depression has tripled over the past 2 decades. So here you have a drug that apparently sometimes, in certain cases, helps an individual be less depressed, and yet depression has tripled. That's not a cure for depression. And of course, nobody is going to ever say, just like they always say women are becoming unhappier in spite of feminism, and it never occurs to say, it's not allowed. You're not allowed to say the obvious truth that women are unhappy because of feminism, that there's a correlation between feminism and female unhappiness. Not allowed to say that. So it must be in spite. What's the mystery? How can we solve this paradox? And the same thing is true with depression medicine. Why? I mean, they almost don't even ask the question, why are 3 times as many people getting depressed? Why are a record number of people committing suicide when we have all these wonderful drugs? And on top of this, by the way, and I talk about this in my book, The Truth and Beauty, not just do we have what people are telling us are treatments for depression, but psychiatrists who used to be talking doctors, they used to be people who listened to you and had ways of adjusting your mood through conversation. Psychiatrists, almost all they do now is prescribe antidepressant drugs. That's basically what they do. They're basically drug dealers. Psychologists, psychotherapists are not. Those are people who will still talk to you. So, and because of that, psychiatrists now in the medical community have a respect that they didn't have before. It used to be that a psychiatrist in the medical community was looked upon as a witch doctor, but now psychiatrists are treated with respect and are given positions of more respect in hospitals because they deal drugs, because of this materialist prejudice in the medical community. And the reason I say that people now with these new drugs you're going to have more obesity, not less, even though there will be individuals who are helped by the drug to be less obese. The reason I say this is because when you treat people like chemical sets, when you treat people like meat puppets with chemistry sets inside, you devalue their lives. You devalue themselves. You basically lie to them about who they are. And so you will have individuals who, for instance, you will have smart, educated, upper-class individuals who are depressed. A doctor will give them some antidepressants that'll cheer them up enough to go to a therapist and start talking to the therapist and working out their problems. Because you're not depressed because of a chemical imbalance. You have the chemicals are communicating to your body what has happened to your spirit. Your spouse has left you and now you're depressed. Something happened to you in childhood and you haven't gotten over it, and so you're depressed. Those are the things that make people depressed. The way you feel the depression is through the chemical imbalance. So when you take a drug that readjusts that chemical imbalance, you're still depressed. You just can't feel it anymore because your body, the system that communicates that depression to your body has been turned off. People eat too much because they're looking for love. People eat too much for all kinds of emotional reasons. They eat beyond healthy because they haven't been able to train their will, because they haven't been able to train their intellect to parse the desires of their bodies, and so they mistreat their bodies. By eating too much, they feel terrible shame about it. It is incredibly hard to lose weight, and it may be that a drug can help you get there, but not if you are treated as if that drug is going to solve the problem. You know, whenever I hear people say addiction is a disease, I always think like, no, you're trying to escape the shame you feel about addiction. But addiction is a disease of the will because you have a free will, and that will is diseased probably for psychological reasons. It's really interesting that so many more people believe in God than psychologists. I mean, the psychologists don't believe in God. And when they have found that religion makes people happier, they basically treat it, they'll say, religion has survived. I'm reading this from the American Psychological Association. Religion has survived because it helped us form increasingly larger social groups, held together by common beliefs. Religion survived because there's a God. That's why religion survives. And the more psychologists and psychiatrists who believe in God, the better they'll be able to treat people, because the more they'll be able to see that you are a spirit expressed by a body. You're not just a body that is, that can be treated and manipulated to do the right thing. That's my prediction, that this Ozempic will help people, will help individuals, but by treating all people as chemistry sets, there'll be more obesity in 10 or 20 years, just like there's more depression, even though we have so-called cures for depression. I'm going to end it there. You can't help human beings until you know what human beings are. They are spirits. They are incarnate spirits. That's what they are. That was unbelievably great. If you want more, like and subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.